story of Peyton Place. Starring Dorothy Malone as Constance Mackenzie, Ed Nelson as Michael Rossi, Mia Farrow as Allison Mackenzie, Ryan O'Neill as Rodney Harrington, Barbara Parkins as Betty Anderson, Tim O'Connor as Elliot Carson, Christopher Conley as Norman Harrington.
Hannah Cord has waited for this day for 28 years. The day the man who was her husband will be laid to rest. But in death, as in life, Brian torments her.
Brian Cord, burn in hell.
The same man also torments a young woman he never met, Betty Cord. A young woman who knows the secrets of his life and how they're closing in on her husband, Stephen.
Stephen.
Where's my mother?
She's at the hospital with Mr. Peyton. You didn't have any breakfast this morning. Would you like something now?
No.
How about a cool drink? It was dreadful, wasn't it? I thought after the funeral you'd go straight to the office.
I felt like coming home. I mean, this home.
I understand.
How is Mr. Peyton?
I told you, it's nothing serious. I've never been to a funeral before. One time I thought my mother was doing me a favor by keeping me away from them. The pain, the futile tears. But the truth is, people die, they fade away from sight forever. I'm sorry I didn't go with you.
I should stay away from funerals, I guess. There was a minister, he gave the eulogy. He shouldn't let a stranger say things over a man's grave. We couldn't find anybody who knew Mr. Colby. Not anybody. I felt like it should have been raining. And that's stupid, isn't it? But that's what I felt. That there should have been rain and cold and dark clouds. But the sun was hot and bright. There were no clouds. I kept on thinking about Anne. She and I are practically strangers, and there I was at her father's funeral, thinking about her.
What did you think about her?
Oh, I felt so sorry for her. I felt like crying for her. And in my mind, I could see her quite clearly as a little girl. The way she looked the first time I saw her so many years ago. That one time on the bluff. I wanted to cry, Betty. But there were no tears.
I know, Stephen, I understand.
I'm afraid I don't. When the services were over, I just stood there. Like I couldn't move. My legs didn't want to move. It was as though I wanted to say something. I don't know what. There was no one to say it to.
Oh, Stephen.
I need you so much. What is it? Did what I say upset you?
No, no. Don't pay any attention to me. Hadn't you better get back to the office? It's late.
No, I'll just sit here.
Well, I won't be able to keep you company. To do. Stephen, you can come with me.
No, thanks. I'll just sit here, wait for my mother.
Please, Stephen, come with me.
I said I'm going to wait for my mother.
Are you sure you want to work today?
Yes.
Well, you have every right to take the day off.
I'd rather not, Mike, if it's all right with you.
All right. You have time for coffee?
Well, the children are probably there already.
Ann, have you thought about the future?
Some.
But no decisions, huh?
Yes, decision, but it may be hard to understand why I've made the decision I've made.
Well, that sounds a little ominous.
I'm going to stay in Peyton Place.
I was hoping you'd say that. Come on, brave girl.
Oh, brave, Mike? I don't know about that. I only know that most of my life I've been pushed and pulled and tossed about. Something that took approximately 1 second to happen.
You mean the time for the accident to happen?
Yes. 1 second. I thought about all the time before and all the time afterwards, and that's insignificant. That time is the only important time in my life. 1 second. Not brave, Mike. Determined, I guess. My father's legacy.
Well, you don't seem very shaken up.
Should I be?
You did go to the Holbear funeral.
Yes.
How did Miss Howard hold up?
How does anyone hold up burying their father? He wasn't the only family she had.
Oh, he was? Shame. Did you cry?
Why are you so concerned?
I'm planning my own funeral, Doctor.
That sounds more like you.
Plenty of tears, that's what I want. No rejoicing, at least not in the cemetery.
You're not about to die, Mr. Peyton.
Is she leaving Peyton Place?
No, she's going to stay here, at least for the moment. Now, let's see if we can get you into the chair, huh?
And Stephen. I want to invite Stephen. Did he cry well this morning? Recall that I've ever seen Stephen cry. Nope, he won't be invited. He wasn't even upset, was he?
What brought all this on? Morbidity or a sense of curiosity?
I have a right to be morbid. I'm an old man. I've had a severe setback. That's why I'm in this hospital.
Is it? That's not what your chart says.
Where are you taking me?
To the lab.
I was there yesterday.
And you'll be there today and tomorrow and as long as it takes to find out what's wrong with you. If
I
anything
know
is...
what's wrong with me. I'm tired of being punched full of holes and filled with pink swill and white swill and purple swill and then flushed. Just leave me alone, why don't you?
Would you take your hand off the brake, Mr. Peyton?
You, most assuredly, will not be invited to my funeral. That Miss Howard?
Yes.
I want to speak to her.
She's with a patient.
It'll only take a minute.
And this is Mr. Peyton.
My condolences, Miss Howard, for the loss of your father.
Thank you, Mr. Peyton. Mr. Peyton. You must have known my father.
What makes you think that?
Well, I found some old sketches in a suitcase that must have been done a long time ago for the portrait of your daughter. The one in your house?
Come on, Nancy, I'll play you a game, huh?
Mr. Peyton?
Oh, yes. Yes, that portrait was painted when my daughter was in boarding school in Boston. She commissioned it. She was a student of your father's at the time.
I didn't know my father ever taught.
I assure you he did. I never met him personally, but I remember the bills. Art was a fad of my daughter's. She was always daubing something in those days, or buying painting.
You Never met him?
I was abroad a great deal. I'm afraid I was rather a neglectful father.
I suppose it's silly, but I was hoping you could recall something about him. It would be nice to talk to somebody who remembered my father.
I'm afraid I must disappoint you, Miss Howard.
Excuse me.
Dr. Morton, pick up on extension 23. Dr. Morton, pick up on extension
Bye, Nancy.
23.
Well, I suppose you feel better now, Mr. Peyton.
What does that mean?
You wanted to upset Miss Howard, and it seems as if you succeeded.
I merely wish to express sympathy.
To a stranger, about a stranger? You're not yourself today.
What would you say, Doctor, if I told you I intend to go home soon?
I'd be glad to get rid of you.
Rod, I want to talk to you for a minute.
Sure, what do you want?
I wanted to know about your grandfather.
What about him?
How ill is he?
Well, I guess he's pretty ill. I tried to see him at the hospital.
Well?
Well, I couldn't get in. Have you talked to him?
No.
Well, I hope he'll be all right. Listen, I ran into Norman at the hospital. He's doing very well. He's got himself a job. He's going to school. He's doing his homework. We sort of agreed to be friends, even though we are brothers. I hoped you'd be pleased.
Yes, I am. Strange that he went to the hospital.
Well, he was concerned, Norman.
Not Norman, the old man. Did you see any signs that his health was failing?
No. Well, when's the last time you talked to Norman?
Well, I'm going to call Norman in the next few days. I'm really swamped at the middle, Rod. Living in the same house with the old man, you must have been aware of his condition.
I have an idea. Why don't you just find out what nurse is taking care of Grandfather, and you can well, give her a few dollars for his hospital charge.
That's uncalled for, Rod.
Or you could call him and ask him how he feels. Or do you even care how he feels?
After all these years, you don't understand a thing about your grandfather, do you? No matter how much we talk.
Yes, I do. I understand that he's very sick and very old. I understand that he's one of my few living blood relatives. And that makes him very special and important, and Norman thinks the same way.
I see. Well, I look forward to your help.
What kind of help do you want, Dad? Do you need?
You know what I'm talking about.
No, I don't. I told you about Mother's painting being cut up and Stephen and Ann being brother and sister, not to help you get something or do something. I thought you knew what was going on. I thought you could lay it on the line for me.
I didn't know, and I don't know now. What would you have me do? Discuss these things openly with your grandfather?
Well, isn't that a shocking thought? What are you going to do with what you know? Blackmail him?
I'm going to do exactly what he would do. What he's done to me and everyone for years. I'm going to use what I know to my best advantage. I'm going to find out what else is crawling underneath the rocks your grandfather's name and fortune stand on. You accused me before of not caring that he's ill. Well, let me put you straight about that. I hope your precious grandfather recovers very quickly, stays well and lives for a long time, and you can tell him I said so. Because now I can get even with Mr. Morton, Peyton. Now, finally, I've got the weapons to hit back, to knock him off that high perch of his. And I hope he lives long enough to survive the fall. Long enough for me to see him scrambling down on the ground with the rest of us.
You'll never stop hating him, will you?
No, never. And I'll never stop trying to hurt him. To hurt him the way he hurt me. Family's fun, isn't it? It's too bad we don't have the choice of parents when we're born into the world.